Welcome to A.U.M. Ask Us Marketing. I'm your host, Kalli Fedusenko of Kalli Collective, a digital marketing agency designed to build relationships between financial advisors and their target audience through data-driven content, websites, and advertising. Our episode today is brought to you by the Financial Planning Association, otherwise known as the FPA. The FPA is a great resource center providing education, support, and networking opportunities for financial advisors like you. We're welcoming Ely Delaney, the master of automation and creator of the follow-up Rockstar system, to talk about what to say in your automated follow-up sequences. If you've ever wondered how to stay top of mind with your prospects, nurture relationships, and grow your book of business without being glued to your email inbox, this is the session for you. Ely will break down the art of crafting follow-up messages that feel personal, authentic, and most importantly, effective. Let's dive into the secrets of automation that actually work. Please join me in welcoming Ely. Howdy, Ely.
Howdy, my friend. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. What about you?
I'm doing good. Busy. It's a good busy Monday.
Yes, and it's finally warm here. We
Y-
actually might get up into the 70s, which is like
I know.
crazy.
I thought it was possibly going to hit 80s. I was super excited. I'm ready for warm weather.
I don't know if
I'm
I can do
stoked.
80s.
Yeah. Oh, I'll take that over the 30s any day. So yeah.
Fair, fair. So Ely, let's just like jump right into it and talk about the power of follow-up. Why is consistent follow-up such a game changer for financial advisors, and how can automation make it easier?
Yeah, definitely. So the game with follow up, everybody's heard the fortunes in the follow up. They've heard that
Mhm.
phrase. If you've been in business for any amount of time, you've heard that. But the biggest problem is people don't really understand what that means.
Mm,
If you look at and we nobody knows where this stat came from anymore,
yeah.
but the whole sales people who consider themselves salespeople
Right.
generally they only follow up to 3 to 4 times.
Mm.
Yet, generally speaking, stats say it takes 8 to 12 times, and depending
Hmm.
on who's saying it, maybe 10 to 12 or sometimes as many as 20 times for people to actually know, like, and trust you. Which, if you
Okay.
think about today's world, yeah, there's so many fly by nights, there's so many
Right.
shady people in every industry
Yes.
that we don't trust somebody when we meet them the first time. Just
Yeah.
plain and simple, we're like, yeah, you might be kind of a little sketchy,
Right.
and it doesn't matter how great they are, doesn't matter what credentials
Yeah.
you have, any of that kind of stuff. It's just we've all been burned. And so we as individuals, we have to spend more time nurturing that relationship.
Mm.
That's why follow-up is so key. And we're not talking just one medium either. Like my
Mhm.
specialty is email. I love email marketing. By the way, anybody who says email marketing is dead is just writing bad emails. Okay. That's just the way it works.
I love that.
Um, I hear that all the time. It's like, oh, emails are dead. No, your emails just suck, dude.
Yeah.
You got to fix that.
Yeah.
But emails, texting, and even texting, you got to be careful with it.
Yeah.
But connection on social, but
Mm.
staying top of mind
Mhm.
and following up with a systematized process, meaning don't leave it to yourself to do it automatically
Yeah.
without being prompted, because you are human. You will drop the ball. You will screw it up.
I will.
We all
I
do.
have.
We all do. Yeah, we all do. I mean, I'm the whole systems guy, yet if I don't have it in my system,
Right.
it ain't happening.
Right.
And so we need to stay top of mind without doing the pitch all the time,
Mm.
because we all
Mhm.
know those guys. The only
Mhm.
time you hear from them is when they're ready to sell you something.
Pitch
You don't hear
slap.
pitch slap. Yeah. We call them pitch pirates. I actually heard this guy by the name of David Fagan was the first one I heard this from. And I've taken it from him. Basically, I still give him credit for it, but I love it. And it's basically a pitch pirate, because the
Mm.
only time you ever hear from him is when they want your booty.
I like that.
And we want to stay away from that. We don't want to be known as that guy. And
Right.
so you got to stay in front of people on a regular basis, but add value, be personal, just touching base, not always about what you're selling. And
Mhm.
that's the change in the mindset on how you communicate with other human beings.
Mm. So when in the 20 times of follow-up, is that counting like, oh, I put a social media post out today? Or is it
Mhm.
direct communication only?
I tend to do more on direct communication, knowing the other stuff is there as well. So,
Mhm.
and when I look at the 20 times, the funny thing is, like I said earlier, nobody knows how
Right.
realistic or where that study came from or any of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But we all understand the principle. The
Right.
principle is you can't just follow up 2 or 3 times and give up.
Mhm.
If you send an email once a week for 3 weeks and then move on to somebody else, you're going to fail, plain and
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, and this is where automation can come in, is
Mhm.
that you should be posting on social, posting good stuff, add value, not just pitching your
Mm.
stuff all the time. Because
Right.
we all have seen those guys before, that the
Yes.
only thing they ever post is, hey, and I'm doing this for a client. I'm doing that for a client. It's like, oh, it's all about you. I don't really care.
Mhm.
Um, but adding tips, tricks, resources. Hey, go do this thing. See what it works out for you. I mean,
Mhm.
and it doesn't even have to be about your business. It
Mm.
could be about other things that your people will see value in.
Okay.
And when we talk about that as not even just on social, again, like for me as an email guy,
Mhm.
I will build an entire campaign
Mm.
based around adding value. And it's
Mm.
touching base, tips,
Mhm.
tricks, resources. One of my favorite things in the world, I got it right here,
Yeah.
is I love to recommend books. This
Mhm.
book right here, The Go Giver by
Yeah.
Bob Burg, one of my favorite books. Have you read this one?
I have not.
Okay, you need to read this. So this book, the whole purpose of it is around social karma. Like,
Mm.
go into a relationship with somebody knowing that you're going to give them value, you're going to help them out, you're going to give them
Mm.
resources, whatever they need,
Mhm.
knowing it's going to come back. It
Yeah.
may not come back from them and it may not come back immediately, but you're
Hmm.
building karma. It's going to come back down the road.
Yeah.
That book is a very, it's a very short, easy read. You can read it in like 3, 4 hours. I think
Weekend.
I read it in 4 hours, and I'm really slow at reading. Um, and it's all in a fable story kind of standpoint. So it's super easy
Mm.
to read. I highly recommend everybody go get a copy today and then read this book,
Mm.
because it will be a game changer if you haven't already.
Mhm.
By the way, what I just shared with you,
Mhm.
you could take the exact same stuff and stick it in an email. And
Mm.
I've done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, great example is The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. It's
Mhm.
another great sales book, which, if you're in business in any way, shape, or form, you should read that one as well.
Mhm.
I wrote basically, I read the book. This is why I like the book. I put it in an email.
Mm.
I get an email from somebody, and it's been a little while now, a couple of years ago, but she emails me, she replies to my email, and she goes, "Hey,
Mhm.
Eli, I want to thank you for sharing this book with me.
Mm.
I was really in a really bad place. I've been struggling in my business and I'm not sure where I was going to go. I was actually looking at just shutting down the business and going and getting a job.
Mhm.
And I got your email on Thursday. I ordered the book on Friday. So she got it on Kindle, and
Yeah.
she's like, I read it over the weekend and I got to thank you, because my attitude has totally changed. I know I'm
Mm.
doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I know that the struggle is I'll get through it.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for saving my business."
Aw.
Which is like, you get goosebumps from that, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
That's
here's
that's what makes it worth it.
exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. I wrote that email 6 years prior.
Right.
She just happened to be at the right time at the right place when she got that email through my automated sequence,
Yeah.
and it changed her business.
Yeah. How far apart are you waiting on sending your emails?
I do what I call consistently inconsistent,
Okay.
which means roughly once a week.
Yeah.
Depending on the industry, some people will go more, some people go less. I know some people that email daily and they do well with it.
Woo.
It's too much for me.
That's too much for me.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. People more in the internet marketing space or
Sure.
sales training, stuff like that, they can get away with it a lot more.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's too much in most situations. But you
Right.
want to go with roughly once a week. And when I say roughly once a week, this is where we get the consistently inconsistent. That is,
Mhm.
it's not every 7 days.
Mhm.
It's not every 7 days at 8 a.m. because
Right.
here's the thing. As soon as you get that, whether you're conscious of it or not, your brain is subconsciously going, I get an email from her every Monday at
Yep.
8 a.m.
Yep.
This is the newsletter.
Yep.
Doesn't matter how cool the email is and how personal it sounds.
Right.
Subconsciously, they get it.
Yep.
So we might do 6 days. We might do 10 days. We might do 8 days. We might do one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one like early evening.
Mhm.
but it's all designed around a movement. So it's not, it's consistent as in it's consistent every, it's,
Yeah.
we're not waiting months.
Right.
We're there, but it's not every single 7 days.
Mhm.
And so you're psychologically, you're tricking the brain.
Mm.
Now, one thing I will caveat this too, we're never lying. If we're
Mhm.
going to use automation in our system, we're never going to lie. We're not. One of the things I'm very big with my clients when I work with them is I literally read their emails and I'm like, okay, we need to change this, because sometimes they'll say, hey, I was thinking about you yesterday. Well,
Right.
that's a lie. You
Yeah.
weren't thinking about them yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were off playing with your dog, right? So you got to be careful about the language you use. And I'm very big into human psychology and the language and the words we use, because those do have power. And
Mm.
if the brain can't believe it to be true,
Mm.
like most of us, we know what a newsletter type of thing. And I hate to use the word newsletter because I'm not a big fan of newsletters the way people write them.
Sure. Yeah.
But most people knew we're using some piece of software that is helping us automate our follow-up system. And that email did not go out to you. It went out to you and 10,000 other people.
Right. Right.
So whether it's conscious or subconscious, they know better. So if you send an email that says, hi, I was thinking about you yesterday,
Mhm.
subconsciously the brain says that's a lie.
Mhm.
And you don't want to ever have
Mm.
that trigger go
Right.
off.
You destroy the trust or
Yeah,
yeah.
it is. That's exactly
No
it.
trust. You destroy the
Exactly.
trust.
You're destroying the trust. Now, you have to keep that trust factor and that authenticity in place
Yeah.
by just watching the words you use.
Mm.
You will never hear me say, I wrote this just for you, or I was
Mhm.
thinking about you yesterday.
Mhm.
And I won't reference a time, because also everything I do is evergreen.
Yeah.
I
I
want to
was
write
just
it once and
wondering,
let it
like,
run
what
forever.
if your automation is set up and then you are out of town for the week and someone replies and then they get the
Mhm.
I'm out of office and then it's like, oh,
So, okay, so here's a great one. And now I'm not exactly the poster child for the perfect
sure.
what they call work-life balance. I think that's a myth, but that's a whole different conversation.
I agree with
Um,
you.
but if they reply back, I never put an out of office.
Mm.
I will reply back. It might
Mhm.
take me a little bit longer than usual, but I will
Mhm.
reply back. And so if somebody does reply back, I mean, I got my phone, my email's on my phone. I
Right.
got the email. It'll take me a minute to 2 minutes to reply back.
Right. Yeah.
I can do that while I'm standing in line waiting for my mocha at the Dutch Brothers, right? I
Right.
mean, I don't need to wait forever to do it or whatever. And so,
Mhm.
and not that many people will actually reply back.
Mm.
And if you're in business, you're in sales, if somebody replies back, that's a conversation. Conversations lead to sales. You want to have that conversation.
Right.
You can say, hey, I'm on vacation with my kids in Disneyland. I want to, let me get back to you early next week. That's cool.
Mhm.
And then people are like, awesome, love it.
Mhm.
Because they appreciate that.
Yeah.
But if I send an email back and you reply, I get that. I personally
Mm.
get that. And I personally respond back. I do not have an assistant do it.
Yeah.
I have had times where I will have an assistant do certain things, but it's like, if this is a tech support issue, yes, you
Mhm.
can help them with it. But somebody replies to me, you just put it you
Mm.
flag it. So I make sure that I pay attention to it, and that's it.
Yeah.
So that's where
Um,
that comes in.
you've got this follow-up rockstar system.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through that and explain how it simplifies the follow-up process?
Okay. Yeah. So Follow Up Rockstar System, it was created at the end of 2018. And I realized that I built this stuff for myself back in 2008 when I got into the speaking industry.
Mm.
And so first thing is, like, I'm speaking and I might have, I get in a room, I got 100 people in the room, and I got 10 people at the end, like credit card in hand, ready to work with me.
Yeah.
I didn't know better. And I thought
Mhm.
that was amazing, or I thought that sucked. Everybody else thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
And they're like, "You're doing great." I'm like, "What do you mean I suck? I got only 10% of the room. What about the other 90? What did I
Yeah.
do wrong?"
Right. Yeah.
And they're like, "No, you don't understand. That's good." And I'm like, "Okay, no, that's bad. We got to fix that." And so I started building these systems to follow up with the people, the attendees. I
Mm.
was doing lead capture from stage when most people still weren't doing that yet.
Yeah.
and we didn't have all, QR codes or mobile phones that could actually do anything
Mhm.
cool. It was a piece of paper you filled out, and I gave you something cool, right?
Mhm.
That's when we had to decipher everybody's handwriting, which was all sorts of fun.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm
Mhm.
building these systems, and I realized that 10%
Mhm.
within the next 6 months, a lot of those people were converting, and I was
Mm.
ending up getting 20 and 30% conversion rates.
Mm.
And so I started building this stuff for myself.
Yeah.
And over time, people started bugging me, and eventually they wore me down, and I started helping them with it, which
Mhm.
started the whole process.
Mhm.
And when I created the Follow Up Rockstar system, the whole point behind it was I've been doing this for 10 years at that point
Yeah.
for other people. Like, I've been doing it for myself even longer, but I'm doing it for other people for about 10 years now. It's all the same. Every one of them.
Right.
They all need the same stuff.
Yep.
And so I put it together, and this is your freebie. So your lead magnet, your
Mm.
calendar. One of the biggest mistakes people make is having a boring calendar.
Mm.
The things that come out of Calendly are just boring and horrible. They look like they're what you would get from a doctor's office,
Oh,
and
you mean the
no,
notification stuff?
yeah, the reminders.
Yes.
They look
Okay.
they look like a reminder for a doctor's appointment, and
Right.
nobody wants.
Yeah.
So you got to change it. You got to personalize it. You got to make it more educational, and you
Mhm.
can actually put stuff to pre-sell people in those reminders.
Mhm.
People, when they get on the call, and I literally had this happen one time. Somebody got on the
Yeah.
call with me, and he saw a presentation I did for the Impact School of Marketing in Philadelphia, and which was part of the email reminders, like, "Hey, go check this thing out." And he gets on there. It's like, "That was an awesome presentation." I'm like, "Thank you so much. You watched the whole thing?" He's like, "Yeah, I watched it 3 times." I'm like, "No, wait a minute. We're talking about the 45-minute presentation I did. You watched it
Wow.
3 times?"
3
He's like, "Yeah, it
times.
was that good." And I'm like, "Well, first off, thank you. I'm shocked. I really appreciate that." And he's like, "So let's just cut to the chase. What am I going to buy from you today?"
That's amazing. And do you mind? I'm gonna share your Calendly follow-up that I got because I think it's a great example.
Yeah.
Right. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. Here we go. So here's Eli, so you can see how it's fun and
Mhm.
um engaging. It's not just, hey, talk to you on Thursday.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you've
And
got,
that's
and just like you're talking about, you've got the links
mhm,
in there to the videos. You've got, I
mhm.
can look you up basically, which makes
Yeah,
it,
and that's
yeah.
and that's and this one, I think this one might have been, let's see, this was actually after we talked. So if you
Mhm.
find one of the older ones, from before our talk, that's where you would have got the automation side.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
because this one was actually, I personally did this for you afterwards, and that's something that's really big too.
Ooh,
If you have a call with somebody, record a
yeah.
personalized video for them afterwards. Especially, like, for me, I do a lot of walkthroughs of stuff or demos of software, things like that. And get on Loom. I mean, if you're not using Loom, it's a phenomenal tool. It's
Mhm.
very inexpensive, and you can even probably get away with the free one for most people. And just record a quick little video. It's like, "Hey, here's just a recap of what we talked about."
Right.
And people are blown away by that.
Mhm.
So, did you find the other one?
I didn't.
Okay.
I think it'll take me too long to
Okay, that's fine.
sift
And
through.
here's basically, I'll give you kind of a quick and dirty version of it. Is like,
Oh, wait,
somebody, did
actually, I said
you
that
find it?
this might be it. Let
Okay.
me share it. Uh,
Let's see. They're looking for. Yep, there we go.
okay.
Okay. So most of that's pretty straightforward. Um, but it's just like, "Hey, looking forward to our call in a couple of days." Not even any like fancy formatting or anything.
Mhm.
If there's an emergency you need to reschedule, do it here. So there's a link. I also put something really important in there. If that happens, do me a favor and shoot me a quick little message letting me know. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because if somebody just bails on me when I'm on a call with them, it really kind of annoys me. But if they say, "Hey, I had an emergency come up," everything's cool.
Mhm.
I feel so much
Right.
better about it.
Right.
But the next piece down below that is where I like, the next thing was also, this one's one of the later ones. So it doesn't
Mm.
talk about the presentation as much, but it's a reminder. And it's like,
Mm.
"Hey, if you haven't watched it yet, check out this thing I did for the in Philadelphia for the Impact School of Marketing. It's a great presentation, and I know you'll get a couple of good nuggets out of it. I look
Yeah.
forward to talking soon."
Right.
Okay. That's where that personalized feel comes in with it. And
Mhm.
that's what we're looking for.
Mm.
So much, most people's stuff, they don't do any kind of formatting. They don't
Right.
add anything extra to it. If you can have something, especially if it's going to be a sales related conversation,
Mhm.
you could do a quick little video of hey, here's what you need to do to be prepared, or here's a couple of questions to stop and think about. And again, you
Mhm.
just put it on a page with a video that talks them through. You might have, maybe you're giving them a worksheet that you'd like them to fill out before they get on the call.
Right.
So what you do is you record a short little video,
Mm.
5 minutes max, like
Mm.
max for that.
Okay.
Mine is a full-on presentation. It is 45 minutes. I don't recommend that.
Mm.
It works, and that is a damn good presentation, so I don't change it. So when I get another recording that's that good, I will
Right.
switch it out for a shorter one. But right now, it's just worked for years.
Yeah.
But if you have, maybe you give people a little bit of homework, like especially if it's a sales kind of call, you might be
Mhm.
giving them a little bit of work. You could actually set up a recording that basically says, okay, here's the worksheet and here's
Mhm.
how that works,
Mhm.
and just walk them through it very quickly.
Yeah.
And what that does is that makes them feel more comfortable. Number one, with the education side, that they do their homework, which is kind
Mhm.
of important, but also they get to hear your voice. They get to see
Mm.
your face. They get to
Your
see your tonality.
mannerisms.
Huh? So
Yep.
now when they get on that call, they feel like they already know you.
Yeah.
That's
So
the key right there.
I guess that kind of answers my question of what's the key to writing follow-up messages?
So it goes along that same vein.
Yeah.
Make it like you're writing an email to a friend or a family
Mm.
member. It doesn't matter if it's an email. I mean, to be perfectly honest, this works in everything. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, for me, I personally love email, but it works in anything. Sit down and write it like you're writing to a friend. Act
Mm.
personal. Today's world, we even have the ability where you can actually upload a transcript of you talking
Mhm.
to GPT,
Mhm.
and it will actually tell you can ask it, tell me about the personality, the tonality, the style, the speaking style of me. And
Mm.
it'll give you some ideas to work with.
Hmm. That's
And
interesting.
that's what you're looking for. Look at,
Right.
if you're a speaker, if you get on any kind of speaking, you may not call yourself a speaker, but if you do any kind of speaking, maybe you're on
Yeah.
podcast, any of that kind of stuff, take the transcript of that, upload that,
Mm.
and get there. Look at your tonality. Like,
Hmm.
I've done this with clients where I will interview my clients.
Mhm.
And as I'm interviewing my clients, I get the transcript and I watch the video,
Mhm.
and I can write as them, and I can have them come back to me and like, this is crazy. I had one gal that was a client that came
Yeah.
in, and it was so funny because I write these emails for after I did my interview process,
Right.
and she gets the email, she looks at them, and she thought my partner wrote them because she was a female. There's no way that a guy could have possibly wrote these emails. She's like, "These are brilliant. Cindy did such an amazing job." I'm like, "She didn't write those, I did." And she didn't believe me. She truly did not believe me,
Yeah.
because that tonality is the key to it. Write like you talk.
Mm.
Be conversational. If you're a
Yes.
goofball in person, be a goofball in your emails.
Yes.
For me, I do a lot of contractions.
Mhm.
I do short sentences.
Mm.
My paragraphs are usually maximum like 3 sentences per
Mm.
paragraph,
Mm.
because I want to make it super readable, super easy to digest. I want people to skim it and get 90% of the content, where most people, when they
Right.
go to skim something, they get like 10%.
Mm.
And I want people to see my personality in it. So,
Right.
a lot of times when I sign off in an email, there's a peace sign,
Yeah.
because that's part of my personality.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so think about those things when you're writing. Think about those things. And one of the best things you can do, take anything, a recording of you speaking at
Mm.
anything,
Mm.
and as cringy as it is, listen to it.
It is crazy.
Notice,
You do get used to it though, I will
yeah.
say, because I've had to, edit videos of myself and
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been speaking since 2008, and I still hate to listen to myself. But
Right.
when I do, I catch things. And the fun thing is when you go back and you're like, "Oh, that sounds really good. I I sound like a smart person. Hmm." And it can be a lot of fun with it. But when
Right.
you do that, catch your tonality. You catch how you speed up, how you slow down, the type of words that you say, things like
Mm.
that. And it's amazing what you'll come up with once you do that, because that's what you put in anything that you write.
Right.
Because now people will connect with you.
Yeah. We do a lot of uploading our calls with our clients to GPT for that reason, to help. Okay, what would they say? How would they say it?
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
I mean, it's become a very powerful tool. You really gotta train it, and you gotta look at it at the end. That's the worst thing, is people are just copying and pasting stuff, and they're like, "Oh, this is me." And people, I mean, I cannot count the number of times people have said, "Yeah, I saw what you posted last week, and that was not you." And I hear that in conversation. It's not me that's saying that
Right.
too.
Yeah.
It's other people, and I hear that in conversation. I'm like, oops, because they're not taking the time to make it theirs.
Right.
The words are right. The
Mm-hmm.
tonality is not. The style is not. The framing is not.
Yeah.
And that's what makes you you.
I think that also comes into play of, it's really important to be part of your marketing for that reason.
Oh yeah,
Because
definitely.
you and how you would talk, right? So reviewing what somebody has written, so important.
I got a great story for you on this one.
Yeah.
So a client came to me, and they hired a VA to help them with stuff. And the VA was just not the most open person in the world. And so instead of watching the training that I gave them, they just did their own thing and said, "Oh, well, I know what I'm talking about. I don't need that." And they wrote this email going out around the holiday, because it was the holiday times, talking about sitting by the fire having a glass of wine.
Mm.
Problem is that the client
It's in Florida.
had been in AA,
Oh.
and she was like 24 years sober.
Oh, yeah.
And this email went out talking about her having a glass of wine.
Uh,
And the thing that got me was, for me, I just, as soon as I saw that, I was like, "Oh God, this is bad,"
yeah.
because I knew that bit of information, and
Right.
I'm like, number one, this is why you as the owner always have to review things,
Yes.
because if you don't, stuff like that'll slip through.
Right.
And two, by the way, do what your coach tells you to, because if they had brought it to me, I would have caught it before it had ever gone out, which is
Right.
what they would paid me for, and they weren't doing, right? But I mean, things like that can ruin your reputation in a heartbeat, because you have two things: either you're lying about your credibility to begin with, or it's not you, which then
Right.
lose trust. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so I mean, it's a lose-lose situation. So
Right.
you have to be part of it, and you have to make it yours. It has to be
Yep.
your personality and your life stories. Don't tell life stories that aren't yours. I see that happen all the time.
Oh,
People
that's
start talking.
awkward.
Yeah, I mean, and we see it a lot in the speaker, especially motivational speakers. They do it a lot.
Okay.
They'll tell the same story. I got a friend, Steve Gamlin, who talks about the starfish story, and a lot of people, for some reason, I hadn't heard this story, but it's a very popular story in the motivational speaker world, about some guy goes around and he starts taking the
Throwing them
starfish,
back.
sort of throwing them back, and
Yeah.
somebody stops. Is like, "Why do you do that? There's no way you can get to them all. So what? It doesn't matter." And he's like, "But it matters to that one."
That one.
Exactly. So, okay, so you know the story.
Yeah.
Okay. I had never heard this one before, which is really surprising as long as I've been a speaker. But we get that. And I get on, I'll be in an audience and I'll listen to speakers on stage, and I'll see this in emails just as well.
Yeah.
Where they'll start telling a story, and I'm like, that's not even their story. I know the dude that actually had that story. Like, I mean, I'll know the actual person who that was their real life
Right.
situation. And this guy literally stole their story.
Yeah, there goes your trust.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Yeah.
so you have to be authentic. You have to be yourself. And I say the whole authentic thing with a twinge, because we live in this world where everybody talks about being authentic.
Yeah.
And my rule of thumb is, if you're trying to be authentic, you're not doing it right, because you shouldn't have to try.
Right.
It should just be natural.
Yeah. I like that. Tell us a little bit before we go about your blueprint that I've got up on the screen.
Okay, yeah. So the follow-up blueprint was designed. I originally built the original version years ago, and then I revamped it several years ago with updated technology and how life happens. But the principles are all the same, and it's all about, if you're networking in any situation, online or offline, there's certain things you need to do to remain top of mind, to leave a good lasting impression, which is what we all want.
Mm.
And so many people fail at
Mm.
because they're like, they either don't leave an impression at all or they become a pitch pirate, right? One
Yeah.
of the two. And so it's basically the guidelines to go through. It's like, okay, how do you follow up after you meet somebody?
Mhm.
I mean, I've literally done business in the drive-through of Starbucks before. Okay.
Mm.
I have done business at random coffee shops in random states and actually been sitting there with my mocha making sales to somebody who I happen to just talk to at the
Right.
table next to me.
Right.
There's an art to it, but there's a
Mm.
way to do it where you can build that relationship long term. And we're using social media. We're using, when you follow up
Mm.
with somebody, you can't just follow up once. You got to follow up
Mhm.
multiple times and plan for the long game.
Yeah.
And so that's what the follow-up blueprint is, literally kind of a hey, if you feel like you're doing it wrong, let's fix that.
Mm.
And it's kind of a breakdown of here's the things you should be doing, here's how it works, and it works like a charm. It really does.
Yeah. That's awesome. QR code is up on the right of the screen. If when you watch this, you can scan that. It'll take you to Ely's blueprint. Or if you want to do old fashioned, you can type it by copying what I have below my face.
And it's real simple. Just connect with Ely.com. Ely's ELY, by the way, just in case you're
You never know
listening and
these
not
days.
watching. Yeah. Yeah. Well, most people spell it with an I, but if you go to connect with Ely with an I think it ends up at some commercial real estate dude in Iowa or something like that. So it's got to be the one with the Y. That's me.
Ely with a Y.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today, Ely. This was great. I found it very helpful.
Good. I had a pleasure. I love hanging out. I love doing these kind of things and having a good conversation with you. So that's just the big buffer.
Absolutely. Thank you for our guests too. And if you're joining us, make sure to join us next Monday. We'll be talking with Andrew Shedlock again. We are talking about the FINRA and SEC regulations being enforced right now. So not just testimonials, but everything across the board, what he's seeing, who's getting sued for what, so you can take note and learn from others' mistakes and not get sued yourself. So join us next Monday. Stay compliant and stay confident.